Question 14. Does breed type affect pre- and post-milking behaviors? In this presentation, we will compare the activity budgets of Holstein and Jersey dairy cows.
Our main question given was, does breed type affect pre- and post-milking behaviors? We were tasked with determining the activity budget of Jersey cattle. There were 36 total Jersey cows, and one was in the gestation pen. Cows were fed twice per day, while cows were milked once per day. Our hypothesis is the Jersey cows will be more active prior to milking and less active after eating.
Group 3 was assigned with determining the activity budget of Holstein cattle associated with feeding and milking. We observed 30 head of Holstein cattle at the Ferguson Family Dairy Center. For our ethogram, we determined that lying, eating, drinking, social interactions, as well as ruminating were the 5 behaviors we would focus on for our observations. Because the cattle were fed twice daily, group members observed in the morning and afternoon. We hypothesized that Holstein cattle will be more active before feeding and before milking.
The ethogram for Group 1 is as follows, with behaviors observed including eating, drinking, standing, lying, walking, licking, O&F behaviors, bar chewing, kicking, and social behaviors. Bar chewing was only exhibited by a few individuals in the alley between the milking parlor and the barn. It was not observed at any other time. Social behaviors included both aggressive and mutualistic behaviors such as head-butting or pushing and allo-grooming, respectively. The Group 1 data was collected via live, continuous observation and scan sampling of lactating Jersey cows at the Ferguson Dairy Farm at OSU. Sampling accounted for any behaviors occurring at the given moment that the data was recorded. Scan sampling occurred at 5-minute intervals, while continuous sampling occurred instantaneously. Data was collected during feeding and milking periods, with feeding at 9:30 a.m. and 4:15 p.m. and milking at 4 o'clock p.m. Each sampling period lasted a total of 2 hours. New behaviors were added to each member's individual ethogram as they were observed. However, not all behaviors were observed by each member.
This is our ethogram for Group 3. Our behaviors were eating, drinking, ruminating, lying, positive interactions, and negative interactions. Our description for eating was the cow had their head down in contact with the feed. Drinking, our cow had their head down in contact with the water. Ruminating, the cow could be standing or lying, and they had to be chewing without any contact with the feed. For lying, our description was the cow had to be lying laterally with their head on the ground or laterally on their sternum. Our positive interactions were grooming, resting their head on another cow's back, and for our negative interactions, there was displacement or nudging behaviors.
Methods for Group 3. Our observations were conducted with live observation and took place at the Ferguson Family Dairy Center. The Holsteins were fed twice a day at 4:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. and were milked once a day at 4 p.m. We oriented our observations around these times with 4 hours of observation prior to milking and 6 hours of observation done post-milking. The observation times in the morning ranged from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., and the observation times for the evening were from 4 to 6 p.m. For each of the 6 behaviors listed in our ethogram, we calculated the frequency, duration, and percentages for the morning observations, or pre-milking, and the evening observations, or post-milking.
The results for Group 1 are as follows. The total average occurrences per minute for eating are 2.96, drinking at 0.185, standing at 1.44, lying at 0.631, walking at 0.329, licking at 0.096, ONF 0.006, bar chewing 0.021, social 0.023, and kicking at 0.042. An average occurrence per 2-hour observation period for behaviors are eating at 355, drinking 22.25, standing 172.75, lying 75.75, walking 39.5, licking 11.5, oral nasal-facial 0.75, bar chewing at 2.5, social at 2.75, and kicking at 5. The average behavior occurrences per minute for each behavior, post-milking and pre-milking, are shown in the chart below. Post-milking behaviors are shown in red, while pre-milking behaviors are shown in green. Eating is seen to occur more often in post-milking, and standing idle is seen to be occurring more pre-milking, as well as walking, licking, and ONF. During the pre-milking observation times, it is seen that social behaviors are also significantly higher than post-milking.
So the results for group 3, as a group we had a total of 10 observation hours, which were divided up into pre and post milking hours. For our hypothesis, we predicted that the Holsteins would be more active prior to milking than post. According to our results, this was not the case. The Holsteins showed more active behaviors post-milking rather than pre-milking. We decided the best behaviors to look at from our ethogram were lying and positive interactions.
As previously stated in the results, our hypothesis did not match up with the actions we observed from the Holsteins. Instead of being more active prior to milking, the cows were more active post-milking. To determine this, we calculated the frequency, duration, and percentage of eating, drinking, ruminating, lying, and positive and negative interactions. The numbers we calculated for the morning observations pre-milking were less than many of the calculations we made for the evening data, which was post-milking. The frequencies for positive interaction, ruminating, and eating were among the higher numbers for the evening data, which was also post-milking. The bar graphs are another added visual to interpret our data. In these graphs, it is clear the positive interactions were higher in the evenings than in the mornings. Also, the lying was less in the evenings than in the mornings. The ruminating from the cows also rose in the evenings post-milking compared to pre-milking in the mornings.
The data collected by Group 1 showed a trend towards activities that required only a low expenditure of energy for both during and after feeding. They exhibited more social behaviors and more eating and drinking behaviors around feeding time. The Jersey cows showed more restless behaviors such as bar chewing, licking, and other behaviors both prior to entering the milking parlor and after exiting the milking parlor. Before and after feeding, we observed that the cows exhibited more social behaviors characterized by dominance. In contrast, the social behaviors observed during and after feeding times were more mutualistic behaviors. In the feeding barn, eating was observed constantly in a large quantity of the cows. Many of these cows were seen lying down immediately after eating. The cows drank at a steady flow, with many of the cows exhibiting inactivity, self-grooming, or mutualistic behaviors afterwards.
While all of these behaviors in our ethogram contributed to our data, we decided that we could support our conclusions by looking at two prominent behaviors, lying and positive social interactions. We decided on these behaviors because there was a change in percentage of time spent doing each behavior prior to and post-milking. These behaviors also clearly show changes in the cows who are less active versus the cows who are more active. By comparing the percentage of time spent lying and performing positive interactions, our data showed that Holstein cows are more active post-milking than they are prior to milking. This can also be seen in the numbers calculated by rumination and eating and drinking behaviors. These results did not align with our hypothesis that Holsteins would be more active prior to milking, but this could be due to a variety of factors, including human error in data collection, weather changes, and so on.
Throughout the project, Group 1 found that the Jersey cattle were more active and exhibited more restless behaviors prior to the milking period. The Jersey cattle were more active prior to feeding and had a tendency to lie down or stand inactive after eating. Group 3 found that the Holstein cattle were more active after the feeding and milking period. Our initial question was, does breed type affect pre- and post-milking behavior? According to our findings, Holstein cattle have a tendency to be more active after milking and feeding, while Jersey cattle have a tendency to show less activity.